Out of the billions of people on this planet, your brain suddenly chooses one person. And then something unusual happens. You start thinking about them constantly, not once or twice, but again and again and again. Your brain replays conversations, it imagines future scenarios, it even creates arguments that never happened. And the strange part is, you cannot simply stop. Why does this happen? Why does your brain become selectively obsessed with one person while ignoring thousands of others who may be just as kind, intelligent, or attractive? Tonight, we are going to explore something deeper, not just romance, not just psychology, but the ancient evolutionary mechanism inside your brain that were designed to make this obsession happen. And by the end of this, you might realize something surprising. This obsession is not a flaw, it is a feature of the human survival system. But there is one twist. The system was designed for the world that no longer exists. And that is where the things become complicated. Your brain is constantly scanning the environment, not just for food or danger, but also for social signals. For most of human history, survival depended on choosing the right people, the right tribe, the right allies, the right partner. Because one wrong choice could mean losing protection, resources, or reproduction opportunities. So the evolution built a system inside your brain, a system that constantly asks one question: who matters most? Once your brain believes someone might be important for survival or reproduction, it begins allocating more mental resources toward that person. More attention, more memory, more emotional energy. And slowly, this increased attention begins to feel like something else. It begins to feel like obsession. But attention alone does not explain everything, because your brain does something even stranger. It starts simulating the future. Why does your brain imagine conversation that never happened? To understand that, we need to talk about one of the most powerful tools evolution ever created. Humans have something unusual compared to most animals, a powerful mental simulation system. Your brain constantly runs imaginary scenarios. What if this happens? What if that happens? What should I say next time? This ability helped our ancestors survive. Before making risky decisions, the brain could rehearse outcomes internally. It was like a biological prediction machine. But when attraction enters the system, the simulation engine becomes hyperactive. Your brain begins to test possibilities. What if they like me? What if they reject me? What if we meet again? These simulations repeat again and again because your brain is trying to solve an evolutionary puzzle. Is this person worth investing in? And this is where things start to feel overwhelming. Because the brain does not simply run the simulation once, it runs hundreds of variations. Which is why people replay small moments endlessly. A smile, a message, a short conversation. Each detail becomes data for the simulation engine. But attention and imagination alone are not enough to create obsession. something else must fuel the system, something far more powerful. A chemical that can make one person feel more important than everyone else. Inside your brain lives a motivational chemical called dopamine. Dopamine does not create happiness, it creates pursuit. It tells your brain, this might be valuable, keep going. But dopamine has one weakness. It is strongest when the reward is uncertain. If a reward is guaranteed, dopamine says moderate. If a reward is impossible, dopamine drops. But if the reward is possible, yet unpredictable, dopamine explodes. This is why casinos work. This is why social media works. And this is also why attraction becomes obsessive. When someone sends mixed signals, sometimes warm, sometimes distant, your brain becomes trapped in a dopamine loop. Because the possibility remains alive, your brain keeps chasing the answer. And the more uncertain the situation becomes, the stronger the obsession grows. But evolution did not design this system randomly. There was a reason for it, a very ancient reason. Human children are extremely vulnerable. Compared to other animals, they require many years of protection and care. Because of this, evolution favored a strategy called pair bonding. Two individuals forming a strong emotional connection. This bond increased the chance of raising children successfully. To make this system work, the brain needed something powerful, something that would push two individuals to focus intensely on each other. So the brain created a mechanism, selective attention. When attraction begins, the brain narrows its focus. Instead of scanning thousands of potential partners, it begins prioritizing one specific person. This narrowing process increases commitment and stability. But in modern environment, this mechanism sometimes locks onto people who may not actually be compatible, which leads to a strange experience many people recognize: being unable to stop thinking about someone, even when logic says you should. But the story does not end there, because your brain also performs something even more surprising. It begins editing reality. When the brain becomes attracted to someone, perception changes. Psychologists call this the halo effect. One positive traits begin to influence how we interpret everything else. If someone appears attractive, the brain unconsciously assumes other positive qualities: kindness, intelligence, trust. This cognitive shortcut evolved because early humans had limited information. Quick judgments were often necessary. But this shortcut can also distort reality. The brain fills missing detail with optimistic assumptions, which is why people often say something interesting after a relationship ends. I ignored the warning sign. The warning signs were visible, but the brain filtered them out. Because once obsession begins, perception becomes selective, and this leads to one final mechanism, perhaps the most powerful of all. Why does your brain remember every tiny detail about one person? Emotion strengthens memory. When someone becomes important to your brain, interactions with them receive priority encoding. This means small details become highly memorable. A sentence, a look, a shared moment. These memories replay repeatedly because the brain is still evaluating their significance. In evolutionary terms, remembering social interactions were critical for alliances, for cooperation, for mating choices. Your brain learned to store these memories carefully. But when attraction becomes intense, this memory system can create a feedback loop. Memories trigger emotion, emotion triggers more memories, and the cycle continues. Which is why people sometimes feel mentally stuck on someone long after interactions end. But there is an important realization hidden inside this entire system. Your brain was designed for evolve for a small tribe. The evolutionary mismatch. Your brain was designed for a world for small tribes. A world where you might meet only a few dozen potential partners in your lifetime. In that environment, becoming intensely focused on one person made sense. But today, we live in a completely different world. Thousands of social interactions, endless digital communications, constant uncertainty. The ancient mechanisms inside your brain are still operating exactly as they were thousands of years ago. They simply amplify attention. They still simulate futures. They still chase uncertain rewards. Which means the feeling of obsession is not necessarily a sign of destiny. It is often simply the result of the evolutionary system doing its job. A system built to ensure that two humans would focus on each other long enough to build something lasting. And perhaps the most interesting question is not why the brain become obsessed, but why out of everyone it chooses that one person. Because the answer to the question may reveal something deeper about how attraction, memory, and evolution shape the human experiences.